Okay. Welcome to a Chatter Network production. I'm Max Fosberg.
I'm Alex McCauley.
And I'm Grant Colombini.
And this is Excuse the Intermission, a discussion show about Sin City. This week on the ETI road trip, we take a stop in the desert with a deck of cards and a very special guest. So, gentlemen, clean yourself up, hit the ATM, and meet me at the craps table in 30. Our top 5 Las Vegas movies are up next, right after this break.
Hi, I'm Jenny, the host of Alaska Uncovered, a podcast about all things Alaska travel. My occasional co-host and full-time husband, Jay, and I bring you accurate, helpful, and entertaining information about Alaska travel and life in Alaska. We share interviews with interesting Alaskans about all things related to Alaska, from the epic national parks to the best things to do in fun and unique towns, the best tours, the best food, and so much more. We're tour guides, former Alaskans, and frequent visitors to Alaska, and love to share the best information with you to make your trip to Alaska absolutely magical. Find the Alaska Uncovered podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
All right. Before we get started, we wanted to remind you, if you would like to support the show, we are live on Patreon. You can be an associate producer at $3 a month or an executive producer at $8 a month. You will be treated to early releases on episodes, monthly newsletters, behind the scenes photos, and bonus episodes. Most recently, we released our 2023 movie auction, where Grant, Alex, and I try to outbid each other for the best lineup of movies left to release this year. We also have an online store. Go to spreadshop.com and search Excuse the Intermission to get all your exclusive swag. We've got lots of different logos up right now. I just ordered a John Carpenter shirt that we put up, so I'm excited to get that here in a week and sport it on the show. We love doing all this extra content, and we really appreciate your support. Boys, it's Viva Las Vegas week here on the pod, and after going guestless in Philly, we have added to our wolf pack. We have a very special guest with us this week, someone I've known for about 33 years, who has played a huge role in my movie watching journey and taught me how to properly gamble. He is a Patreon member of Excuse the Intermission and a co-founder of the Chatter Network. By blood, he is my cousin, but honestly, he is probably the closest thing I'll have to an older brother. Listeners, please welcome Chris Pike. Chris, thank you so much for being on the pod.
Well, thank you for having me, and what a delightful and kind introduction that was. Thank you so much.
His whole thing, he's killing it. I feel like I'm ready to trust you with all my money on the slots.
Yeah. Definitely great to be here. Really happy as a definitely a longtime listener, and you guys have my favorite podcast. It's what I listen to weekly on my commute to and from work, and 10 to 15 minute chips out of my day until I get through each episode, and have been enjoying the road trip so far. So really great stuff that you guys have continued to do, and I'm a huge fan of the entire Chatter Network, of course. But I love your guys' show.
Thanks, man.
Excited to be here.
Oh yeah. I think this is long overdue. Chris has always had a hand in the whole network, but also in individual shows on the back end of things. So it's great to have him on the pod. You've also been on By the Cover before, I believe, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I was kind of lucky enough to have an invite on one of their episodes as well, which is a blast.
Yeah, amazing. You and Grant, I guess, Alex, you too have been on that pod. I guess I'm chopped liver over there.
Well, no, you and I have been on the pod, but not on By the Cover, but not as like interviewees. We've just been like co-hosting, stepping in spot duty. Yeah.
Right on. Well, Chris, you don't live in Vegas. However, I believe you were you were part of my first Vegas trip, and I think you frequent Vegas quite a bit. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I would say not so much in the last year, but I moved to Phoenix.
Weird. Have you had
Arizona.
something going on in the last year or something? That's so weird.
My wife and I had our first baby. We have a baby boy born December 6th.
Happy belated Mother's Day to Elaine.
Thank you so much. She will be so thrilled to hear that. She's doing a wonderful job as a first-time mom, so certainly deserving of the praise. Yeah, we once little Benito was born, then some Vegas plans kind of went out the window. But Vegas is one of my favorite places. Watching through I was doing a lot of research over the past week or so to watch through some Vegas movies, and man, there's so many. One of the things, and we'll touch on it later, but there's so many moments in these movies where you're like, I stood there. I've been there. I know what that feels like. And there's not that many categories or even cities where you have so many connections. If you go to Vegas more than once or twice, you're gonna develop where's your favorite place. You start to see those things in movies, and that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alex, Grant, what are your guys' personal relationship? Because Vegas is kind of, I would almost call it the most divisive city in the US. Either people love it or they hate it. Like, I've never met someone who's just like, yeah, it was okay. People are either in or they're just like, I'm never going back again. So what's your guys' personal relationship to the city? And then what are some of the themes you saw throughout these movies?
Well, I've always had a pretty aspirational relationship to Las Vegas, where I think that when I'm 60 years old, I'm going to love going to Las Vegas, because those seem to be the guys and the characters in these movies that I relate to the most. And not even for the gambling aspect. I just want to go and watch some UNLV games or some NBA Summer League. That just sounds great to me. And then maybe do some gambling on the side. But no, I have been to Vegas and have really appreciated it for, I think it has an underrated, and now your mileage may vary on the genres of music that go there, but I think it totally gets overlooked as a music city. Now you have these different places like Nashville that are kind of taking the reins as the Bachelorette and the Bachelor destination for a lot of these things, and great live music scene, of course, in Nashville. But I really enjoy, seeing the different DJs that will always tour or have residency at some of these clubs in Las Vegas. And then, of course, all these huge iconic pop stars that go there as well, and just crush it for 10 years or 20 years at a casino with full residency. So I've always really liked that aspect of it. But the one time I went was for a bachelor party, and it was a lot of fun. That was past Alex. So I was able to partake in all the fun things of Sin City. So that was a lot of fun. I've always held Vegas pretty high in my estimation.
Yeah, I have never been to Vegas. So my whole view of it all is all from the movies and all from the music and what I was kind of TV, kind of raised. I remember one of my favorite TV shows to watch when I was homesick was Las Vegas with James Caan, about him just running this hotel.
Josh Duhamel. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I kind of have this Hollywood view of Vegas. I now think I'm 33, or I'll be 33 this year. I now think the first time I go has to be a time when I have $5,000 to lose in a full black suit, just going all out, just making a whole thing of it, just because that's all I've really ingested from the city. Granted, my list, I have on these other episodes, going to stay true to my brand, and so I'm going to be pulling out some fun Vegas movies. But I mean, the card count, the card games, those movies, the ones based about gambling and casinos, obviously hold a huge elevation in Las Vegas movies. But then there's always just a bunch of these movies that just want to play in the desert and do fun stuff, and kind of in Sin City, there's nothing for miles around, so to speak. At least that's how it's pictured in the movies. But it's just obviously a town full of debauchery, and you can become a millionaire or die. I feel like it's how it works.
Definitely an advantage to going to Vegas if you like to gamble or if you enjoy gambling. But what I've learned over the years, because Grant, it's very similar to you. I think after the first time I went to Las Vegas, I went for a friend's bachelor party in my early 20s. One of my friends got married pretty young. They're doing great. Good for him. They have a couple of beautiful kids. But bachelor party, and he's a really like super reasonable, down to earth guy. Like he's not going to go out there and get crazy in Vegas. But we did gamble, and I realized I set a new rule. Like I'm not going back there until I've got $500 that I can lose, and then like the next time, okay, $1,000 that I can lose, and then I'm not going back until I've got $2,000 that I can lose, and that kind of ballooned a little out of control for a bit. But if you don't like to gamble, there's still a lot to do there because of the food, the shows, the music. There is a lot there in Las Vegas. I mean, they've done a lot to make it more family friendly for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do always hear like people talk about like old Vegas compared to now new Vegas, and how new Vegas is much more geared for that family vacation. And, you know, you're going to have more rides and places that kids can hang out at, as opposed to old Vegas, which, you know, was a lot of old guys smoking cigarettes and playing baccarat.
Personally, not planning on taking Benny there for vacation. It's still not like you people do take their kids there, but every time I see it, I'm like, I don't think I would take my kid there.
Hey, how about for his first birthday? I'll meet you in Vegas.
Yeah, there's still the like mobile billboards driving around with advertisements for exotic dancing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, you kind of can't shield yourself from that. One of the movie themes, I think, you know, we've talked so much about gambling here in the onset. Las Vegas, for as like morally corrupt as the town may be in real life or in the movies, I think actually has like this really deep allegorical like core behind it, where a lot of these movies, people are gambling with more than just money. Like they're gambling in their relationships, they're gambling with friendships, they're gambling with their lives, they're gambling with all sorts of these like interpersonal conflicts and demons that I think the setting of Las Vegas just works really well to tell these stories in this location. So, you know, I'm watching these movies and yeah, I got good times and I got, you know, some bad times on my list, but I think that so many people think that like Las Vegas movies are comedies. That's not really the case.
Yeah. I would say it spans all over the place. And if
we maybe don't have a good Vegas horror film yet, that's the one thing that hasn't been done. But
like a true blue horror.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that hasn't been done yet. Actually, that'd be a great setting. You know, running through like casinos and like trying to find
labyrinths, right? It's like getting out of a maze. Like it's not like you got easy exits out of those. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
And people everywhere, you know.
Yeah,
we're on to something, guys. We're on to something.
Yeah. No free ideas.
Do we feel ready to jump into these lists? Any other last thoughts about Vegas?
No, I don't think so. Let's do this.
All right. As always, our guest goes first. Chris, what is your number 5?
I'm gonna my list. I feel like as I've gone through it, I've made a few different iterations of my list, and I'm happy where I ended up with what is a good representation for my top 5. But I feel like it's kind of chalk, so I'm interested to see what kind of Venn diagram we have between our lists. But going to number 5, a classic. You know, there are not a ton of. There's some there's a lot of Las Vegas comedies, but this is one of them. Big influence, more from the cast and crew, I think, than even the movie itself, as I just recently watched. But 2009's The Hangover, Todd Phillips, Zach Galifianakis, Ed Helms, Bradley Cooper. Real prime. Todd Phillips had a run there before he started getting into some different types of movies now more recently, with, I think there was the Batman and Joker. Yeah. And he's running that back next year or this year, I think, with a sequel. So he's definitely gone a different route more recently. But man, I was looking through his filmography and the amount of influence he had on my like jokes as a late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, and even still today. I mean, The Hangover was. I went and saw that with a bunch of friends. It was the type of thing that the movie's great. It's a classic like I messed up in Vegas on my bachelor party, and we got to figure out what happened. It's a nothing groundbreaking as far as the story goes. There's a lot of jokes in there that probably don't get written today, but there's definitely a lot of laughs. There's some fun things that they do with the movie and with the structure of it. But it's kind of a classic for Vegas comedy. I was struggling between this and one other one, which may end up on your guys' list. But The Hangover 2009 is my number 5.
Yeah, this is my number 4, and I think you hit it right on the head, Chris. I think with our age group, like this was kind of the first movie where it's like, oh, Vegas is like this really like, mystery mystique city that I'm gonna have to go to, and I think it also starts like I don't know if bachelor parties were going there beforehand, but like this definitely had such an influence on I would say our generation as far as like where are you going to do your bachelor party? Well, in fucking
absolutely,
Vegas,
I mean, and coming out in 2009, I was 23. 23, turning 24 that year, the end of that year. So that was, I believe I had gone to Vegas once at that point, but I'm not actually sure. I might not have even gone yet. So I think it was like right in the wheelhouse for our age group to be like, oh, that's what it's going to be like in a year. Or, hey, the first time I go, that's what I can look towards it. Not that you want a lot of the stuff that happened in this movie, but the fact that this stuff may be possible in Vegas. There's a lot of stuff there that you're thinking, holy cow.
Well,
it's a lot of adventure.
Go ahead, Max.
Extremely quotable too, which I think the comedies of this era, I think of Superbad and Wedding Crashers, Old School as well, which is another Todd Phillips. So quotable, like in the face, like that's where that saying came from. It's just it's a really funny movie.
I mean, every year you see somebody dressed up as Galifianakis with the baby on Halloween. Like it's iconic, and I'm glad you mentioned Superbad because this movie and that film both they occupy this really like special place in comedies there in the late 2010s, or I guess late 2000s, right before we get into the 2010s, because they are post-internet, but they're pre-social media. Because yes, we had a few things like I guess MySpace and Twitter, Facebook, things like that had already happened, but this movie is so different in like the digital age. If you try to set it now, it just wouldn't work because this is still basically contingent on just like a guy losing his cell phone, and then everything with Bradley Cooper trying to like communicate back. It's just like people don't pick up a call and you just don't know where they are, so I really like that aspect of it because I think now you would almost have to like shoehorn in a lot of that stuff where you post a picture and you hashtag Las Vegas, and then like different club promoters are coming into their DMs or whatever. Like it would just be so different now if they tried to stay true to the times. So this came along at the perfect moment there in 2009.
Yeah, it would have been solved with like sharing your location or what did we do last night? I'll go watch my Instagram story. I'm sure I posted something, and they said just be over it, just like that.
And that's honestly one of the funniest parts of this movie is when you see the quote unquote Instagram story at the end through all the Polaroid pictures.
Yeah.
I remember when I saw it in the theater and that like post credit or during the credits look back at all the things was the funniest part of the entire movie. Like, you would sat through and as a 23-year-old that movie was hilarious and still is very funny, but man, then boy, it got me. And then seeing that role and it was like, holy cow, they just doubled down. Like they just made a second movie in over 3 minutes of filling in some of those gaps.
Quite the precipitous drop in the sequels, but they
leave the Vegas setting, right?
Sorry, Maxie. Just got to mention Justin Bartha makes a second stop on the road trip with you guys after an appearance in Philadelphia.
Yeah, look at that.
He was digging up treasure, and then now he's sleeping on a roof.
Yep.
Let's go, Alex, next.
Okay, I really didn't know what to do in my 5 spot, but the more I thought about it, I think this movie has to get talked about. It only half takes place in Las Vegas, but the first 70 minutes of the 1993 film Indecent Proposal are insane. This movie's directed by Adrian Lyne, the great erotic thriller auteur director. Stars Robert Redford, Woody Harrelson, and Demi Moore. Just a trifecta of superstars, A-list actors. This movie has one of the best premises, I think, that probably wouldn't get written today. But my goodness, it is great. Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson are down on their luck. They're about to lose their property. They love each other still very dearly, and so they want to try to make things right. They take their life savings and they go to Las Vegas to try to get the money that they need so that they can pay off their debts, pay off their mortgages. And while they are there, Demi Moore meets Robert Redford, who is a billionaire, and he offers the couple $1 million to sleep with Demi Moore for the night. Wild shit. And it is such a, like I was talking about, people gambling with much more than just money. They're gambling all of a sudden with their relationship, with their marriage, with their love for each other. He's this suave dude, but also kind of this strange, I don't want to call him a loser, but like, he's this billionaire who has to do things like this, make offers to people to try to find true love. He actually has a pretty good speech at the end of the movie, which explains why he's sort of like this. But no, the first like 70 minutes that all take place in Las Vegas are really phenomenal. There's great craps table action. There's a really good Hold'em scene where he's playing with like $10,000 chips. A lot of Vegas rules, I think, are broken in this movie. Like they just basically like front him $1 million until his check can clear, and he's out there gambling this amount of money, just like with the common folk. I don't think that would happen.
Yeah, he's in a back room somewhere.
Exactly. Robert Redford's character is definitely like in a private suite gambling with other just like filthy rich people. But I digress. That wouldn't make a cool movie. I think that this movie is missing some of the signature Adrian Lyne beats where like there's not a murder, there isn't too steamy of a sex scene thrown in the middle there, but that's also kind of like it does the Goodfellas thing where you don't see the Lufthansa heist, and so you're just kind of left to wonder what happened during that scene. You never actually see the night that Demi Moore and Robert Redford end up spending with each other, and so that kind of puts you in the Woody Harrelson seat where you're just like, wow, the suspense is killing me. It's literally driving a wedge between our relationship, not knowing what happened that night. And she never goes into full detail to Woody about it. So that's basically what the second half of the movie is once they get back to California, kind of how this one night drove them apart from each other. But I do really like that as like a plot device. Like, can a bad decision be contained to one night? And what better town to set that in than Las Vegas?
Yeah, a lot of one nights in Vegas where you make questionable decisions. Absolutely.
That don't just last that one night.
Yeah, totally.
The posters are a lie. What happens in Vegas does not always stay in Vegas.
Grant?
All right. And then I just want to remind our viewers who, when we've done this before, that my camera is at the bottom of my screen. So I'm not just like spacing out into the distance, just like staring up above. Like I'm looking at you guys. So I didn't want you to think that I'm just not focused.
You've got a sports game on. Come on, don't lie.
Oh, it's over. Yeah. So
shout out to the Kraken. Great season.
Yeah, great run.
Hot damn. What a run. Game 7, both series. Unbelievable. Okay. My number 5 is one that like half takes place in Vegas, half takes place in DC. And then in Vegas, they explore like kind of the outlying areas of Nevada a little bit, but there's some great scenes in Vegas. And I'm talking about one of my favorite comedies, maybe Tim Burton's greatest film of all time, Mars Attacks. Seeing Jack Nicholson as a casino runner, just the most American casino runner you've ever seen. Those scenes up in the boardroom and him just like his vision for his new casino, and then cutting down to Danny DeVito and Jim Brown and all those guys and fucking Tom Jones. Like, just like you're talking about the people, Alex, who have like residency, like Tom Jones is there just being Tom Jones, and he gets thrown into this alien invasion. And, you know, seeing Danny DeVito and these guys, like, one, for a while playing games as all this is going on. And then, you know, the chaos happens and just like kind of running through the strip as they're trying to get to this airfield and stuff. There's a lot of cool, fun scenes in Vegas. And then also has, I think, any scene in any movie in Vegas this one does one of the best of chips flying in the air scenes, whether someone is like tripped, someone gets like punched, someone's trying to create a diversion. This is like, there's just always chips flying in the air when there's chaos in a casino. But yeah, this has some great Vegas scenes, some great gambling. It's a fun laugh. We're going off of Indecent Proposal, and a lot of other serious movies are going to get brought up. This is a very lighthearted Vegas film.
I feel like Mars Attacks has come up on the show multiple times this year.
Yeah. It's getting a cult resurgence, I feel like, ever since it got on Netflix.
I totally forgot it had some Vegas stuff in it. My number 5 might kind of pair well with Mars Attacks. It's a bit gonzo, I would say. And that is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. This is your number 4, Alex. Excellent. This movie, it's so uncomfortable to watch at times, just because I'm not saying I've ever like gone to the depths of Hunter S. Thompson.
You never brought mescaline to Vegas.
I don't even know what mescaline is.
You don't have a suitcase full of drugs.
But I definitely have had some mornings in Vegas where it feels kind of like I know what mescaline is. So,
lizard people in the lobby and floors moving.
Yeah, this is just a wild ride, and honestly, I know it's based on a true account or a true story, but like this kind of behavior, it's so perfect for the Vegas setting, and is just one of the all-time like drug movies. And Johnny Depp used to try stuff. Directed by Terry Gilliam. We've got Benicio del Toro in here as well as just a crazy person as his lawyer. And yeah, it was this is one I hadn't watched in a very long time, and rewatching it, I was like, wow, man, what a visual feast.
Yeah, the lights in this movie, the lights, the disorientation that one gets, whether you're drunk, high, or sober in Las Vegas, I think is really well. It's portrayed really well in this film. The thing that I really I don't even know, just I guess recognized and appreciated in this rewatch was the fact that he's there to cover like the National Motorcycle Convention or the World Championship of Motorcycle Racing, because I think that's something that people don't realize, is that like the most random ass conventions and tournaments and things like that happen in Vegas, and that's really what the city survives on. Obviously, people coming in and pouring hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars into the casinos plays a huge part in that, but you have to get the people there somehow. And it's not just going to be on the backbone of bachelor and bachelorette parties or people just vacationing or having a layover there. Like, you have to bring people in. And so the convention aspect of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, I think, is aged really, really well.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, just kind of no notes. I mean, it's a wild movie. It's on the top 10 or the top 15 list of like quote unquote trippiest movies to watch for a reason. You watch this movie, the direction, everything, the camera work, it's all fantastic. The music is also really, really good in here, like the jukebox soundtrack. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies where some of those films that you watch early on as you're like quote unquote discovering cinema, don't always hold up the best, because you're kind of like, okay, I don't want to just seem like, some film nerd who's just like says that this movie's great. But I think when you give this movie enough time in between viewings, you can go back and really appreciate it for the craft.
Totally. And it's just, I think we say this all the time on the show, but nobody makes a movie like this anymore. No one takes the risks that this movie takes, and like, expects the audience to hold on. So yeah, it's a great throwback.
Yep.
Let's see, Chris, your number 4.
Okay. My number 4 is from 2007. I don't want to talk about it a ton because there's going to be another movie on, at least on my list and maybe on others' lists, that is closely related, but mine is 2007's Ocean's 13. The third in the the third in the Ocean's reboot series.
I'm just watching Chris's eyes bounce around to the different boxes. Like, who else has got it?
Yeah. So I
Ocean's
have
13, Go ahead, Grant.
This is my number 1.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Then
So,
do you want to save it for you to talk?
Let's talk
If
about
How
it
do you guys
now.
want to do that?
If it's Grant's number 1, I think we should probably save it.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I think so. All right.
Cool.
We'll save.
Cool.
All right. Alex.
My number 4 is Fear and Loathing.
Fear and Loathing. Grant, your number 4.
My number 4 is a little-known comedy called Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. This has some of the greatest strip cinematography.
Burt Bacharach.
Burt Bacharach on a
R.I.P.
double-decker bus. Yep. It has some of the coolest, like, just dolly shots on the strip. They're probably on a car, but the way they fade in and fade out has some major, like, old-school vibes to it. The casino scenes with the soup Nazi from Seinfeld, iconic. I Like to Live Dangerously. And also, I mean, Austin Powers gets, brought back to life in the mid 90s. What better place for that guy to go than Las Vegas? Like, I totally forgot that was the setting for like majority of the beginning of him getting reintroduced back to the world. And then also just an all-time classic comedy. I mean, it's Mike Myers kind of, I think we just briefly talked about him off air, and it's just one of those, like, this is kind of when he gets into more of his like character stuff and a little bit more of kind of who we know him as now. And it's just, I mean, Elizabeth Hurley, I'll have a forever crush on her for the rest of my life because of that movie. And it's just classic. And then, like I said, the scene with number 2 sitting at the table. I mean, it's classic, like, Bond sitting at a casino table. Bond I don't think Bond ever went to Vegas, did he?
Diamonds are
forever. That's right.
Yeah.
God damn it. But, it just obviously has that vibe. And then, it's just great shots in that one.
The stuff after the table when he goes into the bathroom with, is it Tom Arnold, right?
Yeah,
and he's sitting in the stall next to him. He's just like, "Hey, buddy, bite your lower lip and give it hell.
We're gonna get through this."
Who does number 2 work for?
Show that turd who's boss.
So funny.
Yeah, good stuff.
Definitely someone you would run into in a Vegas bathroom.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, cowboy hat still on. Yeah.
And I can't remember if it's when he first gets to the casino or when he's finally leaving the casino, but he has one of my favorite dad jokes that I try to do to as much as I possibly can. Is he's just walking down the stairs and he points at someone and goes, "Oh, there you are." And they go, "Do I know you?" He goes, "No, but there you are." And then just keeps walking. Classic
stuff. Okay, my number my number 4 was The Hangover, right? So we're back to Chris for your number 3.
Okay, my number 3 is from 2003. It is directed by Wayne Kramer, William H. Macy, Maria Bello, Alec Baldwin in The Cooler, which is a movie that I really like.
Didn't get to. I'm jealous.
I was telling Max about this movie like a week ago. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a movie I really, really enjoyed. It's true. It's set perfectly in Vegas. William H. Macy is a cooler. That is his job. For those who haven't seen it, his role is to go up to tables where gamblers are winning big, and he has uncanny bad luck. It's like a curse basically with him, and anything that he touches goes to shit basically, and that unfortunately carries over to his personal life, his entire life. He's a real sad. It's a great performance from William H. Macy. He was nominated for a Golden Globe, so was Maria Bello. Alec Baldwin was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor for Best Supporting. So some really good performances in this movie. Alec Baldwin is, as you would expect, a perfect asshole in this movie. He plays that part really well. Love Alec Baldwin. And William H. Macy meets Maria Bello's character, and they surprisingly fall in love, and William H. Macy's luck takes a turn. And that's the basis for the story. It's truly about like the joy of love. And at the end of the day is my takeaway from that movie. And how that can make you feel like, holy cow, like he says, I've got Lady Luck on my side now. And it just really turns the tables in a lot of situations in his life, and leads to an interesting ending for sure.
The thing I love about this movie is the photography, which is so weird to say because this is filmed in a really gritty, grainy way where obviously like we see in high definition. And so like card rooms and casinos don't actually look like this, but at the same time, it has such a good feel for, I think, what like a casino floor looks like at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. And so that aspect of it, I've always really, really liked. But you're right. The William H. Macy character, I feel like, is the everyman, even though he has exceptionally bad luck. At least that's what we know his character to be before this story really gets going. But I feel like there's so many people who have his trajectory in Las Vegas, so many more than these other characters that we get to see. So I just feel like it's a really honest movie. So I like that about it.
There's also a really the more I've been thinking about this movie, the more I've been attracted to. There's an interesting, I haven't like really wrapped my brain around it, an interesting side plot line. Alec Baldwin's kind of a traditional casino manager, old school. Hey, we're going to take him in the back and beat him up if we think they're doing something wrong. And he's kind of got the bosses of the casino are bringing in a kind of a consultant guy. Ron Livingston plays this character who's kind of a new age. Hey, we're going to play music with subtle lose messages along to it, and like try to bring in. It's almost like to bring in new stats in baseball. He's bringing that to the casino world, and Baldwin really fights against that. And it's an interesting little side story around the push and pull between new technology and how that affects Vegas and others.
Is William H. Macy's character, as the cooler, is he employed by the casino to go up and destroy these tables?
He is employed by because he owes money back to Alec Baldwin's character or the casino. I think they bankrolled him to gamble and he lost it because of his luck. Right. And he had a gambling problem. But he's known Alec Baldwin's character since they were like kids. Alec Baldwin plays a guy named Shelley, and Bernie is William H. Macy. Bernie and Shelley have known each other for a long time. They talk about working together in Atlantic City when they were kids and all these things. So they've got a long relationship, but he's there kind of forced to be there to be the cooler.
Okay, cool.
I don't want to say he's a indentured servant type of role, but he's in debt.
Well, I was just kind of thinking, like, I wonder if that is a real role for Las Vegas casinos. I have no idea, but that would be such an interesting career if you're like, yeah, I just walk around and kill tables in Vegas. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I could do that.
I don't know. Probably not based on somebody's supernatural low luck.
Yeah, that's true.
My number 3 would pair nicely with the cooler. You probably would want to watch this one second, though, because it's a real bummer of a time. It's 1995's Leaving Las Vegas. Oof. And
I avoided that.
Yeah. I mean, this is just such a performance-driven movie. There's nothing really flashy that happens. Like the camera work isn't crazy. We don't even really spend that much time in what people would consider like the fundamental Las Vegas staples where you have to do this. It's much more just like we're following Nick Cage's character around. We're seeing him go into bars. We're seeing what his apartment life, his home life is like. And he meets Elizabeth Shue's character, who is this escort who helps him kind of turn things around a little bit, at least not want to kill himself, which, I just want to stay away from how bummer of a movie this is, but it's just such an incredible performance. And, you can make the case that maybe Nick Cage should have 1 or 2 more Oscars under his belt. I know that there's a huge camp out there for like adaptation. People love that movie, a few other things that he's been in. Moonstruck, he's really good at the beginning of his career.
National Treasure.
Of course, National Treasure. How could I forget? Yeah. But no, this movie, and especially being extra sensitive to his character, for me personally, I just rewatching this movie was, I don't even want to say like, it wasn't traumatizing, it wasn't triggering or anything like that, but I just felt so empathetic towards his character while watching this film. So although, yes, it's not like your prototypical Vegas movie, once again, I think this guy's gambling with so much more, with something so much more. He's gambling with his life, with addiction, with all these other things. And so Las Vegas is just the perfect setting to tell a story like this.
When I watched this. Gosh, this was like one of the first episodes we ever did. It was like what top 5 movies we've watched during lockdown, and this was one that I had never seen, so I watched it.
Tough movie to watch during quarantine.
I know, yeah. But yeah, it's super depressing, and I think the amazing thing about Cage's performance is that even though he is like, he's poisoning himself, he is like constantly smiling throughout this movie. Like, yeah, he's like happy to do what he's doing to himself, and it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating.
He throws every pitch in his arsenal. Like you don't just get like this guy who's playing, just like playing this straight. He is, like I think a lot of down and out alcoholics would be. They're putting on and they're smiling for the camera and they're doing all these different things. You just feel for the guy. The one scene in the bar where he's hitting on the girl and he's like, "Do you just want to come back to my apartment and watch VHS tapes?" I'm like, I'd go back and watch a movie with you, Nick. Okay, if it's gonna help save your life, come on.
Yeah. Oosh.
All right, we're doing number 3s, yeah. Perfect. Well, this is one I've mentioned on our previous road trips, and as we continue this road trip, you'll see this theme pop up. But I love when we focus on these cities to find ones if there's a destroyed version or a post-apocalyptic or a version we're not quite used to see that city in that world. And I will look for any and every excuse to bring this movie up on the podcast. I'm of course talking about 2021's Zack Snyder's directed, written, and shot Army of the Dead. Zombies in Vegas.
I knew it.
Zombies in Vegas, and a cool take on the zombie thing where it outbreaks kind of in supposedly outside of Area 51, and it is soon as the outbreak happens in Vegas, it gets contained and they wall off Vegas. So it's that's where the zombies are. So the whole plot is trying to break into a zombie infested Vegas to rob a casino and break out before they nuke it. And so it's really straightforward, a classic B action flick, getting the team together in the beginning, executing the deal. And then our friend of the pod that we had on a few months ago, Richard Citrone, just gives us one of the coolest, most badass, vicious zombies you've ever seen. And then it's fun. The opening credits is when when it's happening. So you see Liberace impersonators, Elvis impersonators, strippers, casino workers, all getting attacked by zombies, mid-hand being dealt. You see people hooked up to oxygen tanks, smoking cigarettes as they're pulling their slab. So it's just this cool little juxtaposition of what Vegas is, as it is just being completely destroyed by fighter jets and soldiers and zombies. And then, Dave Bautista is, I feel kind of right in his wheelhouse. He gets a lot of fun with Drax. We've seen him do some other bits. I think Max kind of coined him as is he the best wrestler turned actor we've had? With Knock at the Cabin, he had some good ones. This is really straightforward stuff. He doesn't have to try too hard. He can be himself. And so the line delivery, I was every time I rewatch, I'm always surprised at how not cringy he is. And then his supporting cast, Matthew Schweighöfer, coming out of nowhere, this German kid, steals the show, ends up directing the prequel. Zach really likes to get these people involved in other projects. Christian Slater, Kurt Russell, and a lot of these other guys are going to be voicing his prequel series to this. So it's going to be an animated show taken solely in Vegas. Just a fun, just bonkers, gasoline explosion filled zombie Vegas movie. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's a ride. I love this film.
Yeah, I remember seeing this in theaters with you, Grant, and it is, I think post-apocalyptic Vegas, you don't really get a lot. I can think of maybe one or two other movies like that. So it is a fun, and they do some fun kills with within the casinos and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And, I remember enjoying this movie a lot in theaters.
And they used Elvis a lot, so it kind of has it's what the city of Vegas uses for all their commercials. They use either Viva Las Vegas or A Little Less Conversation, but he dives in and he uses 4 or 5 of his tracks and just very Vegas themed stuff. The opening is a Richard Cheese version of Viva Las Vegas, and it's fantastic.
I don't want to be wrong, but if I remember right, isn't this the movie that has the underground safe cracking competition to kick it off, where they're finding the...
So that's the prequel. That's Army of Thieves. Okay. Yeah. So the German guy I was talking about, he's the safe cracker in Army of the Dead. So that movie's just all about him. Yeah. No, you're hey, it's the franchise. You're in it.
All right. My number 3 is from Paul Thomas Anderson, one of my all-time favorites. It is called Hard 8. We covered this movie a little bit on the Paul Thomas Anderson. Was it the ranking? We ranked his movies. Yes. This is his debut film. Came out in 1996. Philip Baker Hall, John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, and an amazing performance from Sam Jackson, who just in the 90s there was just throwing 100 miles per hour in every single movie until he became kind of a cartoon of himself. This isn't the most, it's not the best PTA movie. It's not even like the most PTA movie, right? But there are like some small moments throughout this film where you're like, wow, these are the bones that are going to make that are going to end up becoming some of the greatest American films over the next 2 decades. And I just love that this movie is centered around craps, because I feel like poker, and I would even say slots probably get a lot more screen time throughout Vegas movies, at least the ones that I watched this past week. And so just to have like some key scenes, including just Philip Seymour Hoffman just being absolutely crazy at the craps table, going head to head with Philip Baker Hall, is just gosh, I miss that actor so much. He was just such a dynamite person on screen, and I really love craps, so I think that's also why I love this movie. And I love playing the Hard 8. So but it's also a really good noir thriller. Definitely slower in parts, not as party as much as like some of the other Vegas movies out there, but kind of a great representation of old Vegas.
Well, I just love that Philip Baker Hall gets to be the guy in this movie, where he becomes, I think so many people know him as a character actor, and especially a character actor in other PTA films like Magnolia or whatever it may be. But yeah, this is like Paul Thomas Anderson, you can tell. And I think that Philip Baker Hall was a friend of his father's, of PTA's dad. That's why he wanted to like cast him in the lead for this movie. But no, it's great to see him kind of just get to cook.
Absolutely.
I watched this for the first time. I started it yesterday and finished it today. And it's really sneaking up on me as like the minutes go by, because I can't stop thinking about some of the scenes and some of the dialogue. And if I were to redo my list right now, it's probably creeping in my top 10, and I don't know where it would, top 5. I don't know where it would end up. I think it's going to be one of those that the more time passes, I'm going to watch it again, probably in a week or so. But Max, you nailed it as far as some of the performances there. I mean, there's a scene where Philip Baker Hall is going to pay some money to what's the character's name in this movie? Do you recall?
Sydney is Philip Baker Hall, and let's see, John C. Reilly is John.
Right.
Sam Jackson is Jimmy.
And I was trying to think of Sam Jackson.
Gwyneth Paltrow is Clementine.
There's a scene where Jimmy pulls him into like a little side kitchen because he doesn't want to take the cash in front of everybody. Yeah. And he like leans over to say something, like he's going to whisper something in his ear, and he just shakes it. And then he kind of chuckles and shakes it off. And I thought, man, that was good. Like there's just some little pieces that, man, good acting. And I love the dialogue in this movie. It's really dialogue, really script driven for sure.
Absolutely. Chris, you're number 2.
Okay. My number 2 is Casino. My number 2 is Casino.
That's my number 2 is
Alex is number 1.
My number 2 as
We're
well.
gonna save that for you for your number 1, Alex.
No, let's do it now. If it's Max's 2, if it's Max's 2 as well.
Grant, it's your 2 as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at us.
Okay. So just to tee it up, it's Martin Scorsese, 1995, Robert De Niro. Man, the reason I actually considered even not putting this on my top 5, but I have to because it's really, really good. It is a really, really good movie. It's just too long. And I was mentioning to Max that I've realized my movie watching, and it's my fault. That's not anybody else's fault. It deserves to be as long as it is because the story's there. It's just made me reflect on what I need out of a movie right now in my life. And that's I need a tight hour and a half, or else it's going to take me like a week and a half to watch a movie right now. So I just can't. It's really interesting, but I did want to call out a couple things in this movie that I thought was really fun filmmaking, and it really highlights what Scorsese did throughout the movie. There's a couple of scenes that I thought, God, that's cool. When they're about to bust a couple of cheaters, and he zooms out and they've got spotlights on these police officers or security guards that are going to close in on these cheaters. And also when two of the characters are talking about meetup, but they're talking in code, and they've got subtitles on the screen that are like, yeah, I'll be there at 9. Okay, fine. And I love the movie making. It's Scorsese. I mean, you guys have talked about him at length. There's nothing more that I can add there. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it as well.
I mean, who stood out the most to me on this rewatch was Don Merkles. He's just so good in this movie. So good. But no, I mean, I went back the first time I logged this movie on Letterboxd, and I stand by this, is I simply just said, am I crazy for liking this more than Goodfellas? And I do. I'm not afraid to say it right here, live on YouTube. I
1A,
like
1B,
Casino
man.
more. I like Casino more than Goodfellas. And I think that this movie got so much shit when it came out for not being as good as Goodfellas, because it was De Niro and Pesci coming back together. But this movie has something that, and with all due respect to Lorraine Bracco and the women in Goodfellas, they didn't have Sharon Stone. Like Sharon Stone, Grant, you want to talk about the best chips being thrown into the air sequence ever? It's her.
This is it.
This is it. And on top of that, you get the slimiest greaseball prick who's ever been in a movie in James Woods' character. My goodness. And having just seen Videodrome at the Grand Cinema this past weekend, Jimmy Woods there for like 15 years. I just don't understand our fascination with him as like a movie going audience, but it works in roles like this so well. And in roles like Videodrome, it worked really well as also. But yeah, I mean, a few different things, those guys that I mentioned. And then also, I think my favorite sequence in this movie is when Sam Rothstein, the De Niro character, is telling us how Las Vegas works. And it's the whole eye in the sky speech.
Yeah.
That is just Scorsese at his best. That is De Niro at his best. This is also one of the only times that I think narration has worked 100% in a film. I love the narration in this movie. You just feel like you learn so much about Las Vegas through Ace's narration. So that part is phenomenal. And then just to top it all off, I already said that I want to be a 60-year-old like smoking cigarettes in Las Vegas, but only if I can look like Sam Rothstein. The tangerine suits to go with the Tangiers is just phenomenal. I love it. And his glasses, everything about it. Yeah, so phenomenal.
I've got suits underlined.
Yeah. And also too, the last thing I'll say, shout out to The Weeknd for bringing this character back. A lot of his like Blinding Lights music video was based around Casino. So this whole kind of resurgence of the Sam Rothstein character and Martin Scorsese's just, I think, kind of forgotten masterpiece has been kind of in the headlines here recently. So I wish more people would take Casino seriously as like a top 5 Scorsese movie.
Yeah, growing up in my family, we always just called it Goodfellas Part 2, just because we held it in the same conversation. Plus, I think Pesci's better in Casino than he is in Goodfellas. That may be blasphemous to say, but I'm with you in that camp, Alex. Where there's definitely points of Casino that rise above a lot of other Scorsese films. I think it's the best cinematography in any Scorsese film, especially like the first 30 minutes. That first act is basically just Vegas 101. Like not even just that scene where he's saying this guy's watching this guy, I'm watching him, that whole thing. Just itself of just going down the strip, moving through a casino, the offices, just introducing us to these characters. That's just the only thing that popped in my head. Talking about the narration, obviously great shit from Robert De Niro. I love when it would switch to Pesci for like a monologue. And then the coolest I thought was when it's Nikki's side guy, Frankie, and he's talking to the boss, and then it pauses for a second, and he gets like a 2-minute narration where he's like,
I know Vincent, if I like, man. Shout out Frank Vincent. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, no, I know like this is a hard spot because if I tell him the wrong thing, a lot of people are going to get killed. But if I tell him the right thing, a lot of people are going to get killed. So I like, it's just like a small moment. but just these choices that Scorsese makes, I mean, it solidifies why he is held so high. You can even see some things I would say he tried in this film, and then like something in The Departed, he maybe refined. Like there's the part where Nicky's walking out of his jewelry store and it doesn't quite go to black all around him, but there's like a little brighter focus on him and following him. And then in The Departed, he does that like circle blowout shot a few times. And so that you can just see that like Scorsese never skipped a beat. He's like, I'm going to start making films. And when I end making films, all of them are within exactly how I've wanted to make films. Cause they like, not to make it be like a fucking George Lucas thing, but it's like poetry. His films, I feel like, rhyme with each other and how they look and how they feel, especially Casino and Goodfellas. And I think this is one of Joe Pesci's best roles, of him just kind of as like one of the just craziest mob guys that just all he wants is power and respect and feels like he doesn't have either. So he's just slinging his way through things and just finding things he could. I don't know. I rewatched this last night and I kind of fell in love with it all.
Yeah, you know, I feel like, you know, Scorsese got so much power from making Goodfellas that here he really like is able to do anything. And I totally agree that the cinematography might be the best of his career. I also think you can make a case that like Casino is way more compelling because you have Robert De Niro in that main role as opposed to Ray Liotta. As good as Ray Liotta is in Goodfellas, because he is very, very good.
And De Niro's good in Goodfellas also.
Totally, yeah. but De Niro as the center is just much more interesting. And listen, De Niro at that time, he was the greatest actor in the world, probably.
He does this in Heat within a 2-month period.
Hello, it's just Casino. It is funny that like when it came out, it was such a a down point for people because it wasn't. And I think that's probably because it wasn't the traditional, Goodfellas gangster movie, right? But this, I don't know, it just feels a little bit more sophisticated.
Well, like, and it still has its moments too, right? Like, look what they did to my hand, man.
Yeah. Totally.
It's also like when people are looking at like that. Okay, I don't know if you guys ever watched The Wire, but The Wire like looked at like different gangster lives, but from different perspectives. They're all players in the game, right? But then so you got Goodfellas looking at like the classic like New York mob or Chicago, like, the mafia. But then this goes to like, you've got a lot of this movie. They talk about like the battle between the yokels from, the guys wearing cowboy boots, that's a portion of this syndicated crime as well. Cause they control
the California, the Nevada, the Nevada Gaming Commission. Yeah.
They talk about how they have juice if they're related to a senator or a governor or whatever, like, so guys get jobs just because they're somebody's cousin. And it can be corrupt.
And I love Ace at the end where he gives the whole monologue about New Vegas versus Old Vegas. And he's just like, that's it. They came in, they blew it up. They made it for the kiddies. It's over. Right. It's done, whatever. Yeah. But it's just so great. It's such an honest snapshot, I feel like, of what they were portraying.
Yeah. It's an excellent movie. I mean, you could say that about any Scorsese movie, but I do think Casino does get a short stick sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, you get this whole reclamation for like After Hours. After Hours has now been released by the Criterion Collection, and now people are saying, "Oh, well, let's do Bringing Out the Dead" and all these other films. And it's just kind of like, you know what? Maybe we should just leave Casino alone and let the real appreciate it, because that's where I feel like it lives best.
Alex, I don't want to spoil too much for future episodes, but you're having a big Sharon Stone moment, aren't you?
Yeah. A comment.
Before we move on, I watched a bunch of like interviews with people. One guy we haven't mentioned in Casino yet is a guy that I love. Is when we talk about like character actors, like, oh shit, he's in this. Kevin Pollak as the gaming commission guy. That's just like, don't tell me anything. The less I know, the better. But I'm going to help you out any way I can. Kevin Pollak was talking about Casino, and he said his favorite thing about being on set was Don Rickles, Alex, because anytime Scorsese would yell cut and Don was either in or not, he would look at Bobby De Niro and just go, "That's the way you're gonna do it? Okay. No, you got the awards. You got the awards. Go ahead. And he would just riz De Niro after every take, and De Niro loved it. De Niro would just start busting up laughing.
Yeah.
But Dickles would just not break character. He would just be constantly just be like, "Oh, you're gonna do it like that? Oh, what a choice!" And then just like move on.
If you want
So
some
good.
excellent Rickles content, go onto YouTube and search. He like does a set for Robert De Niro or for Martin Scorsese's like AFI award.
Yeah.
And he goes after De Niro, he goes after Scorsese. It's fantastic. And Rickles was truly one of the best at doing that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so where does that put us now? We know that Grant
All of our
has
Mine's-
Oceans
Yep.
coming
As
up.
one.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
one.
I still have to do my number 2.
Okay. Yeah, I think everyone, so Casino was everyone's 2 except for Alex, correct?
Right.
So Alex, let's go to you for your 2.
It's no fault of this movie that Casino is as good as it is, because this is just as deserving for the number 1 spot. The 2023 ETI road trip is turning into the Paul Verhoeven like reclamation tour, because I'm talking about Showgirls from 1995 as well. Showgirls, which has been completely reclaimed as like a cult classic and a forgotten about masterpiece, which also bombed when it was released, has aged incredibly well, scary well in the post-Me Too movement, and how it highlights the misogynistic nature of not only Las Vegas, but basically of just all men in power, and talks about, and it's just such I don't even know the right way to describe it, because every single man in this movie just wants to manipulate power and to manipulate the women in their life to get more power. And it is all about how this band of girls in this terrible profession of Las Vegas showgirls kind of comes together and rises above, led by Elizabeth Berkley, in just a transcendent performance. She is out of her mind. I get that a lot of people didn't like the performances when it came out from not only her, but Gina Gershon as well, and some of the other people. But I really do think that even though they're going for it a little bit, that's what this movie needs. That's what a story about showgirls in Las Vegas needs, is these huge personalities behind them. But just the camera work, really. I mean, we're at the Stardust Hotel and we're moving around through different dressing rooms and through stages, and the camera work in this movie, the quote unquote set pieces are they're amazingly filmed, where they're long takes, people aren't cutting, there's so much choreography, there's so much dancing going on. And I just love movies, much like Casino, that just teaches something. And this movie, I feel like, for better or for worse, and this movie gets dark at times, like trigger warnings for sexual violence and all sorts of other things.
NC-17, correct?
It's an NC-17 film, yes. Just there's nonstop nudity in this movie, but a lot of it isn't sexual, so you kind of just like get used to seeing it. Kyle MacLachlan is also in this film, and you know, he's showing cheeks. Shout out to my guy Agent Cooper. He does not like his involvement in this movie at all. But anyways, this movie just does such a good job, I think, of executing its mission. And Verhoeven doesn't do anything half-ass, and he certainly didn't do it with this movie.
Yeah,
it is the most honest, like, deserving cult classic I think that we've had in maybe like the past 30 years. Like, and just what a year for Las Vegas in 1995, because Casino also comes out in 95, Leaving Las Vegas comes out in 95. So whatever was going on there in the middle of the 90s, and it's right before we had this big, like, you know, new Vegas boom, I feel like, with the dawn of the internet. This movie really helps capitalize on that. I'm gonna just go back through my letterbox here and see if there's anything that I've yet to say, because I was just so impressed. I hadn't seen this movie since this was a big like cable one, where like it was either like Spike TV or AMC would just they would play Showgirls, and it's like it would be a 3-hour cut on TV, and they would just blur out all the nudity. But I remember watching it a lot back then, just because I was like, this movie is so weird. But watching it now, I just really appreciated it for all the other things that it's trying to talk about and trying to say. I think I basically got it here. If you haven't seen this movie, it's available on a lot of the different streaming platforms, including Tubi, which is where I watched it.
Shout out to Tubi. We love it. We love it. Yeah, I've never seen Showgirls. It was on the long list to get to this week, but ultimately I don't know. I was like, do I want to go? I was like, I'm not doing Leaving Las Vegas. Do I want to go down this other dark path?
This because the technique behind this movie is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun in that aspect, but yeah, when you start thinking about the lives that these people live, it just shows you a side of Vegas that like we were talking about in some of these other movies, like The Cooler or whatever. Like, this is not The Hangover, this is not this is not the next film that we're about to talk about where it's all glitzy and cool and suave. Like, it's dirty and people are assholes and only care about themselves. So you do have to prepare yourself for that going in. But my God, I love Paul Verhoeven.
You do, man. You need to start a fan club. He's almost been in every city for you.
Yeah. I mean, and I didn't, because I had RoboCop, and then not to look ahead to next week, but we'll talk about him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, Chris, your number one.
So I had Ocean's 13 as my number 4, and Ocean's 11 is my number 1.
Ocean's 11 is also my number 1.
Beautiful.
Steven
I kind of had 11 and 13 slotted in both my number 1 spots, so I love this conversation.
No, I think that works perfect. We can talk about
you knew.
I knew.
2001. Talk about a slick, fun man. It's just a really, really fun watch. Gosh, it's just really fun. Like I go back. This is a movie that I'll watch. Podcasts about Las Vegas or not, this is a movie I watch at least once a year, but sometimes more often than that. The heist in this is about outwitting, not about outmanning or outpowering. There's not gunplay. It's not Heat for sure. This is a heist where it's a bunch of con artists, and they've got all their little con artist tricks that they're trying to work into their heist. And man, I just love the movie. And slick, I've got that underlined starred. Like, it's just so slick. I don't know if I can put a better word to it.
Well, it's like the peak of coolness, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I've ever seen like people look cooler, and I think it has to do with how it's filmed, how it's edited, the music, where it's at, of course. But then also to bring this ensemble together onto one screen. I also wrote down that like the ensemble has aged so well, because so many of these people like went on to have like moments, after this movie and be, household names. Ocean's 11, it's like one of the top most rewatchable movies for me. I was also thinking, is it the best remake ever made? Or like reimagining, it's not exactly how the Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack movie was from the 50s or 60s. There's not
45 minutes of singing before anything happens.
Yeah, that movie's tough to get through, man. And so, Soderbergh, he's one of our greats behind the camera, and it just was a perfect algorithm of being able to get Brad Pitt, George Clooney, and Matt Damon, then also Andy Garcia, Julia Roberts. You've got Scott Caan and Casey Affleck. You've got
Andy Garcia,
Elliot Gould, in there. You've got Carl Reiner, Bernie Mac,
Bernie Mac,
Don Cheadle, like just like these names. It's just, it's out of this world.
The Bernie Mac van scene is my favorite part in the movie.
16.
Denim like a jean.
So fucking funny.
He's so good. God, he's so funny. I miss that guy.
I feel like Charlie from It's Always Sunny doing the Pepe Sylvia and all the strings attached of like, okay, if you were to split the cast into 2 columns and then draw a red line to everyone they have chemistry with in the cast, the line just goes all over. The Elliot Gould and Matt Damon have chemistry. Scott Conn and George Clooney have chemistry. Julia Roberts and Matt Damon have chemistry. Like the whole ensemble just works so well together that that bleeds into 12 and 13. And I think that's the best part of just seeing these guys interact with each other. It's so fun and cool. And I feel like the thing about 11 that I like the most, and what gears you up for the whole franchise, is how they introduce you to Rusty and Danny in the beginning, and then getting everyone else together. Like you feel like you're part of the audience feels like you're part of the team. You're along in the heist. You're there every step of the way, learning things as everyone else in the team is learning things. And so like when they pull it off, you like kind of want to fist pump a little bit, and you get hyped. The first one is magnificent.
Yeah.
The third one's just a better movie. No, I'm just kidding. It's really hard to like distinguish the 3, because I love 12. Like every time I rewatch 12, I'm always like, damn, is this the best one? Yeah. But everything that you have in 11 is like the things you lose with Julia Roberts and then Catherine Zeta-Jones in 12 not coming back for 13. And then you get Al Pacino coming in, and like we've had Robert De Niro in Vegas, we've had Pesci in Vegas, and now we're getting Pacino in Vegas. And the chemistry he has with these guys is just unbelievable. It's just, I like his
Pacino's no Garcia though. I don't know. Pacino, the third one bugs me. Pacino is a little like, I'm just kind of like, man, you're just kind of old manish. Get out of here.
We've had Pacino in Vegas. What are you talking about?
No, I meant like in this episode. We haven't brought him up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grant.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say,
I'll come back to it. I'll circle back.
When it comes to 13, it's like if 11 isn't available on streaming, but 13 is, well, I'm going to watch it. Yeah. I do think 11's better, but 13 is still really fun. However, 13 might have my favorite bit or gag in the entire series of the Mallory brothers going down to the plastic plant in Mexico and starting a workers' revolution because they don't have AC and they need more pay. And cut to that gag. I just love it so much. Those two, the Mallory brothers are my favorite part about the whole series, probably as far as the comic relief. They're so good.
Casey Affleck is so good.
That little bit sending the second Scott Conn down there to get Casey Affleck reined in, and he's right there now in the fight too because
he's lighting Molotovs and throwing him over.
Yeah.
And that's like $32,000 for everyone. It's like the easiest check they've had to write to make that happen. I just remember, maybe it's just because of, Godfather is probably my favorite movie of all time. Pacino, maybe my favorite actor alongside Gary Oldman. There was just something about going to this movie for the first time. And in that scene, because I think Elliot Gould was my favorite part of 1 and 2. My rewatches, like I love Ruben is such a cool character. And so the beginning of 13, when it opens with him like, oh, is he going to be in a coma this whole time? I got like a little bummed out. But then the scene where Clooney goes, and it's the whole line of like, he shook Sinatra's hand, let's give him a chance. And Clooney just goes to like give Willie an out, being like, hey, if you make Ruben whole, like we're good. And Al Pacino just has this line where he just says, well, I don't lose. People who bet on me lose, and they lose big. And if you come at me, you better come hard, because I strike. And when I do, I slice like a goddamn hammer. And it's like the most Pacino delivery of all time. And I remember sitting in the theater just rubbing my hands together, like, here we go. Pacino's in this movie. And it's probably just all nostalgia for me from 11 and all that stuff. But just I think it's the ending too of like, it's not about them winning. It's about the casino losing. And like that's, everyone always says like the house wins. And this is the movie where the house loses. And their escape plan, the way it lines up, you get the Night Fox coming back in. It's just a nice like full circle to end the trilogy. I still haven't seen Ocean's 8, so I have no idea if there's any connections to these 3, but I thought it was like this franchise was just wrapped up so eloquently with 13 that I feel like it's like a really great sequel. And also I feel like there's just more Vegas scenes in it. And I knew you guys were going to talk about 11, so that's why I have it as number 1.
Right on. Right on. Any other Ocean 11 thoughts before we go to...
Claire de Lune playing over the Bellagio fountains is the most quintessential Vegas shot. Probably right there with Sharon Stone throwing the chips up in the air. Like that's just great.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. And again, as Chris said at the beginning of this podcast, that's something you could go do. You could put in your earbuds and go stand at that fountain.
Yeah.
And have your ocean moment.
There's a shot in 11 that they're sitting inside the Bellagio lobby. There's a little piano bar right there. And last time Elaine and I were in Vegas before Benny was born last year, we sat right where they were sitting. And I was like, we sat there like that. That's us. It's just cool when you can connect to a movie like that.
You can order shrimp cocktail and just watch people go down the escalator. Like, yeah.
Really, really fun fact. If you have the original DVD before the Blu-ray came out, if you have the DVD of Ocean's 11, in that scene where he's eating the shrimp cocktail, it's before they fixed it. When it cuts to the close-up, it's a bowl of nachos. And so it goes in between a shrimp cocktail and a bowl of nachos. Where the Blu-ray now, they've adjusted the frame to where his hands are out of frame, so you can't see the nachos.
Shoot.
But you see him licking his fingers in a way like, you wouldn't lick your fingers with a shrimp cocktail like that. You would with nacho cheese on your fingers, though.
Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah,
I will say, going back to Indecent Proposal, number 5 on my list, if they ever remade that movie, Brad Pitt is the perfect age to play the Robert Redford character now.
Totally.
Get him back get him back to Vegas.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, guys. How about some honorable mentions before we sign off?
I'm so proud that nobody tried to shoehorn Godfather Part 2 and all the Tahoe stuff into this.
Yeah, well, Godfather 1 has Vegas with the meeting with Mo Green and Fredo and all that. But so I was going to mention that, but I'm like, that's 7 minutes. And then Mo gets shot at the end. But so it was a long shot. But I had it in my honorable mentions. I also had Rat Race.
So I wanted to maybe do Rat Race, but I thought, Grant, that you would have it. And then we do just get outside of Las Vegas really quick. It's more of like a Nevada movie.
You cut back to, John Cleese and all the high rollers doing their Pepto-Bismol bets and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's mostly a race to Silver City than anything else.
Hilarious movie, though. A movie, half those jokes wouldn't be written today once again, but a hilarious movie.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned on the show before too, but nothing will instantly make me laugh harder than John Cleese when Breckin Meyer enters and he just says Mr. Henderson, come have a seat. He's like, no, I'm good over here. He's like, oh, it's okay. We were just cutting to the chase. Cutting to the chase. And then he just erupts in laughter and nobody knows what's going on. And it's just so funny to him. John Cleese is just a treasure.
And then John Lovitch just going, ooh, $1 is so great as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Honey, kids need you.
A lot of these Vegas is really good for half of a movie, right? Because you have a lot of road trip movies that go through there or people that end a road trip there or what have you. So you got to give Rain Man a shout out.
Yeah.
Midnight Run has to get a shout out. Go, a Doug Liman movie that I know I've brought up on this podcast before, has a segment that takes place in Las Vegas. So a lot of stuff like that. Swingers as well, the first 30 minutes, 25 minutes of Swingers take place in Vegas, and that's some pretty good stuff there. But just nothing that could really constitute making its way onto this list.
Yeah, I almost had Lost in America, but again, that's a road movie that kind of it stops in Vegas. They're on their way to Vegas and they get there and then they leave Vegas. So it's just kind of some dressing, but a great Albert Brooks movie. If you guys have never seen it, just really, really funny stuff.
Max,
I didn't include it because I was pretty sure that based on listening to you guys for long enough, I was pretty sure Alex would have it on his list. So I didn't include it, but honorable mention for Paul Blart, Mall Cop 2.
It's my number 6. My number 6. Yeah.
I was shocked it wasn't on your list after you made it through. So sorry.
Yeah.
Max, I saw that you logged this and you rated it really low, but there's some certain parts in Vegas Vacation that are some great Vegas moments. I mean, it's hard for me to not if I win a bet anywhere, it's hard for me not to just go, I won the money, it's mine. I won the money.
I had kind of a come to Jesus moment while watching that. I was telling Chris this morning that I don't think I like Chevy Chase. I don't.
Oh, he's an asshole in real life.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't think he's very funny on screen. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't like his acting style.
Yeah. I'm just after like I did try to watch Vegas, or I did watch Vegas Vacation, but that, and then what we just recently did the John Carpenter episode, and I watching The Invisible Man.
Oh, yeah.
There, I don't know.
We'll put an asterisk next to Three Amigos, and we'll table that. We'll have that.
Three Amigos is fantastic.
And Snow Day.
We're not touching, guys. If you guys talk about Three Amigos, I reserve my spot on that podcast.
Hell yes.
Three Amigos is fantastic, but it might be because Steve Martin and Martin Short are in that movie.
Well, yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Steve Martin
100%.
is the funniest thing I've ever seen on screen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you guys seen Behind the Candelabra?
That's another really.
I had it on my to watch list, but I wanted to know what your guys' thoughts are on it.
It's Steven Soderbergh once again returning to Vegas.
Yeah. I watched it when it first came out because I was like, oh, this seems pretty fascinating. Mostly just to see Rob Lowe as the doctor with all of that prosthetic, like plastic surgery. Like Rob Lowe's character is just crazy looking. But Michael Douglas as Liberace was, I remember, I've only seen it once. I barely remember anything about it, but I remember being like, oh, this is pretty captivating. I mean, like this guy was like the Vegas dude after Elvis. Like it was Elvis, then Liberace, and then is it Celine Dion now? Oh, Wayne Newton. Yeah. Tom Jones.
So one more shout out to just the post-apocalyptic Las Vegas, and kind of to take a spot on Grant's corner, but Resident Evil Extinction goes pretty hard. I've always rode for that movie. I think that movie's pretty good. And then there is some stuff in Blade Runner 2049 that takes place out there as well.
Yeah. I still have only seen the first Resident Evil, so when I get to Extinction, I'll let you know.
You're gonna like it, I guarantee. Yeah. And you're gonna see a lot.
It's the highest rated out of all of them.
I think you're gonna see your boy Zach pulled some stuff from there that he liked as well.
Probably.
It smells like a ranking episode for Patreon exclusive. The Resident Evil
movie. The Resident Evil franchise.
Maybe we just pit movies. We've never done this, but like a movie battle. You do like Underworld versus Resident Evil, Underworld 2 versus Resident Evil 2. Like work
bracket
like that.
Yeah, bracket it up.
Well, hey, let's stop giving out free ideas here. All right, we're live on YouTube.
We have enough questions about our studio being bugged, anyways.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, guys. Well, I think I'm broke. I think I lost all my money at the craps table, and it's time to leave Vegas. It's time to get the hell out of here. Thank you guys, of course, as always, to being on the episode, being great co-hosts. Chris, excellent job being a guest today. Long overdue. I love you, brother, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. Love the time with you guys, and really enjoyed it. Always love visiting with all of you.
Excellent. Well, we'll definitely have you back on.
Absolutely.
Again, definitely for the Three Amigos Resurgence pod.
Oh yeah. 7 category review.
But yeah, let's see. Next week we are now heading more. We're going west from Vegas and heading to the Bay Area, San Francisco, where we'll be joined by another guest. Very excited to have. I'm not even going to say his name. Very excited to have him on, though, a returning guest. And, until then, please go to thechatternetwork.com. Make sure to check out all the amazing podcasts that we have on the network and that we get to work with each and every day. Also, one last reminder, we have a Patreon. We also have an online shop, spreadshop.com. Search Excuse the Intermission. I loaded up on some gear today, so I can't wait to show that stuff off as soon as it gets here.
Also, come see us at the Gig Harbor Beer Festival this weekend in lovely Gig Harbor, and a lot of the other shows here on the network. We probably shouldn't end the Vegas pod without wishing good luck to the Miami Heat. I know Max has a bet down on them.
If they all they have to do is get to the finals. We just got to beat Boston. Fuck Boston.
Yes. Say it louder for the people in the back.
Fuck Boston.
And so in between watching the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals, be sure to follow the three of us on Letterboxd to see what movies we're logging in between episodes. And until next time, listen to Alex McCauley when I say we'll see you at the movies.
And also, while you're doing that, don't forget to drink movies and watch beer.
Okay, so Chris, I don't know if you know this, but